All right, so this is completed now. The quad draw is finished. I don't need to do the underside because we're never going to see it. It's only you don't want to add vertices that you don't need. So now I'm going to just disable quad draw and then tap F8 to go into object mode. I no longer need to have the high poly here be live, so I'm going to turn that off as well. And let's just take a quick look at the resulting geometry here. If for some reason I needed to go back and make some edits using quad draw, you can always just turn quad draw back on, and if the here, let me just make this live again, and if it can find some surface, you can just hop back in. It's there. It's not like once you leave it you can't enter it. You can use any geometry you want, including primitives. So if you have like a cylinder or something that has some sort of a cylindrical component, you can add a cylinder in as a primitive and then convert it to quad draw and then just keep working off of that. All right, so looking at this geo here, there's a few things that I want to mention. The first is, because I was placing the points by hand under here, they're going to be just all random, right? And we don't necessarily want to have the stuff be that random. So I'm just going to select everything and we'll flatten it up. That should be fine. All the stuff up here is going to be just fine the way it is. And then I need to go to the channel box, and we can see basically every single thing I did in the construction of this geo is recorded as a piece of history here. So I don't need any of that. I'm going to go ahead and delete it by going to Edit Delete by Type History. And then finally, we'll go to Mesh Display and then Soften Edge. Well, probably for almost everything, we're gonna leave it at soft because this is a slightly cheaper version of the geometry. All right, let's go ahead and show all of the stuff. So we'll show all. And this is our low poly. I get the name of it. Okay, so now let's take a look at the cylinders here. I'll go ahead and isolate this. There's a trick that you can use to isolate your selection if you want, which is to hit this little icon right here. Now I think if you add something new, like for instance if I were to go through and create a cylinder, yeah, okay, so it'll just add it to the selection, whatever you've got. So that's a nice way to do a quick and easy hide. You can just turn everything back off, and like whatever's selected basically I think is what will get isolated. Okay, so now I'm going to, I want this thing to be in the same position. So I'm going to tap the insert key, and this will give me the ability to move the pivot. So I want to snap the pivot to the vert that's right here. So I can tap the V key, and when I do, you can see my little icon here goes from being a square to a circle. And you could also just hit this if you want. This is the permanent little button there. So V is the hotkey that I like to use because I don't use this very often. But then once that's there, now I want to snap it to that center point over there. So I'm just going to tap the V key one more time. Whoops, I need to tap insert so that now I'm moving the geometry. V, and there we go. So that's a very, very easy way to get this stuff aligned. And there's a little bit of curvature on that surface. I could probably capture it without adding an extra edge in here, but I'm going to add that extra edge anyway. Cylinders tend to be pretty expensive. Like if I came over here, so right now I've got 20. You could probably get away with 16. It's a pretty small little button. Let me go and hide this. All right, so that still feels pretty round. So 16 is for a low poly asset, that's probably okay. You might see the faceting on it. Whatever, we can leave it at 16, and then if we need to modify it, we can. Okay, so I'm going to add one more edge though. So we'll go to Insert Edge Loop, and I'm just going to put it right about here, and then grab these faces, and we'll go ahead and show that thing I just hid, which I guess is this button here. So basically what I'm trying to do is just inflate this a little bit so that we can catch that edge. So I'll hide the button now, and we can see we've got a little bit of a curvature there. That will help that a lot. So let's just show all the stuff here. I'm going to just go to Display, Hide, Unselected. And now we have all this extra stuff down here that we don't really need. So I'm gonna grab the verts and move it up. And then we'll use this trick down here of selecting this vert and then go to select convert selection to faces. And we'll delete those extra faces down there because we don't need them. All right, let's go to display show all. So we'll call this one button a low. And I'm just going to duplicate it and then tap the V key. And we'll just scoot it over. And this one we're going to name button B low. All right, so for these, I think I might actually just try to source them from the geometry itself. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go ahead and just hit Control D on that and rename it low. Oh, didn't like that. I'll try that one more time. And we'll go ahead and just hide all unselected objects. So we don't need any of that stuff because it's not visible. And then all the stuff on the top surface here, we can also get rid of because it's just a bunch of messy stuff. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a shift double click on every other edge here. Just trying to decide if I have grabbed the correct edges. You want to make sure that when you do this, you don't actually change the silhouette too much. So I've got these edges here. That might work. We'll know in a minute. So over here I left those, but this one on this side I grabbed. So I'm just going to keep it consistent. Because if you start grabbing too far in, like, you'll actually change the position of the sidewall, and that is a thing to avoid, if possible. And now I'm going to get rid of these guys too. All right, so that's all selected. I'm going to hold Control and Backspace. And now I'm going to just bridge across from one edge to the other. And then once I have done that command once, I can just tap the G key to repeat it. So this is a pretty good trick if you can easily remove edges from your high poly mesh. And I'm just going to show you another technique. So if you've got, if this happened to have 3 sides and bridging wasn't working for some reason, you can always just come over to Edit Mesh. Where is it? I think it's in Mesh Fill Hole and get the exact same result. So I could have gone through and retopped this, but it's just so much quicker and easier to do it this way. And I'm going to now come over and we'll just soften the edge on that. We'll go to Display, Show All. See if I can find it here. Where is it? Button Start here. So I'm just going to scoot that up by holding the middle mouse and dragging. And we'll just Control D to duplicate and scoot it over so that it's close enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we'll call this one Button Select Low. Okay, so now I think we have a high and a low for everything. Let's just confirm. So there's B, A, Start, Select, High and Low, Square, and then Control. Okay, great. So that is a good little place to stop here. We'll pick this up in the next video.